You make my high come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you out like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feel strange. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip.
Welcome to Seahawks Man to Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the new company. My name is Michael-Shawn and Christopher. You guys know where to follow me. It's on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My @ name has not changed, at Mike Dugar, MikeDugar. That's also the @ profile name, whatever. I'm a Blue Sky. Been posting there. I'm gonna try to do it a little bit more. Maybe even do a Q&A this week when I have some time, maybe Thursday or Friday. But anyway, hit me on there as well. Also, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Seahawks Man to Man. It's the name of the channel. That's Seahawks Man, the number 2 man. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as well. The handle, as you can probably guess, is Seahawks Man to Man. Thank you in advance for all of that love and support. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. You can follow me on Twitter at CKID206 and Blue Sky at CKIDD206, and that's CKid206.
We're on a streak here, Chris. 4 weeks in a row with positive one big thing. This is fun. It is way more. It's so fun. Yeah, and this week, Chris, both sides of the ball film was good.
Yeah,
both sides was good. Yeah, so like we can watch. I watched the film split up. I watched the offense, and then I watched the defense. I think you do it the same way. So like we know we go in knowing like, dang, here I go. I got to turn on the offense, or like, here I go. Got to turn on the defense. That's how I felt watching the Detroit film. I was like, oh damn. Let me go check this. Yeah, this is gonna be great. Like Jameson Williams touchdowns or whatever. It was just not great. This week though, both sides of the ball was fun. If you're a sicko and wanted to watch special teams tape, that was better than last week too. Like it was just an overall better game, which is what you want to see from a team getting better each week. So Chris, you kick it off. Usually I ask you, I'm just gonna make an executive call this week. Kick us off. What is your one big thing this week?
Well, Mike gave a little hint to it because when we did our post-game show on Sunday, Mike was like, after the first touchdown, Zach Charbonnet runs it in on a jet sweep. Chris texted me immediately. The creativity. And this one big thing goes out to Ryan Grubb and the offensive line, the offensive staff, all of them, because they put together a cool game plan that allowed the offense to do a little bit of everything, right? And going into that game, I have been big on Ryan Grubb. I need to see creativity. I need to see orbit motions. I need to see eye candy that makes the defense wonder what's going to happen instead of just lining up shotgun, handoff, 1 yard, under center, under center, ISO, 2 yards. Now it's 3rd and 7. That wasn't going to cut it. So against Arizona, I think they just meshed a lot of the stuff they've been practicing, and they said, we're going to try it out and we're going to do it. And I think it was just the perfect time. As we talked about, I think when we did the first Cardinals preview, who was it with again, Mike? The first time we did it 3 weeks ago?
The homie Doug covers the Cardinals for The Athletic.
That's right. We did it with Doug, and I remember Mike talking about, hey, this defense, is it just Buddha and a bunch of guys? Okay, the Cardinals played hell of a game that first time. The Seahawks only scored 16 points thanks to a pick 6 by Kobe Bryant. So it wasn't the best offensive day, and the defense for the Cardinals, they stepped up. But that second time on Sunday, when they matched up last Sunday, it showed that, okay, yeah, the Seahawks offensive line is better, and Ryan Grubb put them in position to showcase that they are better. And it wasn't just shotgun runs here for 2 yards. They used a different set of players and put them in different positions. I had never seen JSN line up in the backfield, but on a certain play, they had JSN lined up right next to Geno Smith on the left side and had a running back to his right. They snapped the ball. JSN goes to the flat. They send DK on a corner route. So now you're conflicted, especially if you're playing zone. Do you leave the flat wide open and try to make sure DK is not getting a touchdown? Or do you buzz to the flat, cover that, and now you have DK one-on-one with the safety? Those are decisions that Ryan Grubb put in the game plan, and they executed well. and they have the Cardinals wondering like, damn, what do we do here? And I just think that's a real. It's simple stuff, but it's really cool to see because they haven't been doing that consistently. They do it here and there, but I thought on Sunday against the Cardinals, they put it all together and they did it throughout the game. A couple of plays, I'm like, yeah, like the reverse that they tried to run on 3rd and 5. Thank goodness JSN didn't give up because it looked like the play was going to be a loss of yards, but he fights hard and he's just a yard short. Maybe if it was a situation where the season's on the line, they might go for it, but it was just the play calling had me going, wow, that was fascinating. And again, even a play action screen, Mike, a play action screen to Zach Charbonnet that went for, I think, 11 or 12 yards. That was a nice little play. They just had so many tricks up their sleeve that was impressive. I liked it. And then going back to their touchdown with Zach Charbonnet to start off, the formation looks a little like, oh, just a simple ISO formation. You got the fullback in, Zach Charbonnet as the running back. You got your 2 tight ends. You got number 86, Farrell Brown, lined up as if he's about to run a route, perhaps. And then tight inside right next to Abe Lucas, you have AJ Barner. And then Gino's like, all right, everybody, move out. Let's motion up. So you send AJ Barner in motion. You have Brady Russell, who lines up right between the center and guard. So you're like, okay, what is this looking like? Zach Charbonnet goes out far to the right. And then you're thinking, oh, what is going on here? They're going to run it to Brady Russell up the gut? What's the play here? Gino snaps it. It's a jet sweep. The defense was confused. They just had so many options during that play that I don't think the Cardinals had seen that on tape. That specific formation, how it was set up and how it was designed, and end up being a jet sweep for a touchdown. That is just a little bit of creativity that I wanted to see, and hopefully they can continue to do more of it. And they continue to put guys in motion. They sent JSN on motion a multitude of times in that game, just using him in different spots. And then later on the game, they tried a reverse that JSN did drop. Had he secured the football, I think that could have been maybe a touchdown, damn near a first down for sure, just because of how blocked up it was. But then everyone realized the ball was on the ground, so people are not really doing their assignments. But on that play, it looked promising, and I'm thinking, wow, Ryan Grubb's having fun out here. He's just throwing any and everything he can at this Cardinals defense and keeping them guessing. And that's just it was really cool to see. And watching the game live, I was thinking to myself, well, this is going to be fun film to watch because they're doing so many things right. And mentioning JSN in motion, they also had a play where JSN starts off on the left side. He's in the slot. He runs behind Geno Smith, and it's a RPO, run pass option, also infused, Mike, with a counter play in which you have your right tackle and you have your guard lead blocking. And that goes for an explosive for Kenny McIntosh. Things like that, I was like, wow, this is a beautiful Ryan Grubb. And they ran the counter play, I think, 6 or 7 times. The counter was money. Zach Charbonnet scored a 51-yard touchdown on a similar play. Wasn't dressed up all fancy. It was just simple. Handoff, counter, bada boom, bada bang, hit your spots, touchdown. But dressing it up that way, sending guys in motion, you got to pay attention to JSN. You got to see what he's doing, and then pulling your left tackle and right guard or left guard. And it could have been an RPO because you had, I believe it was Jake Bobo and DK out ready to block for JSN. They can run that against the Packers, and they could actually throw the bubble to him, and the Packers were expecting a run. Then they could run it again and run the football. There's just so much creativity that they just showed in that game that I'm excited to see how they use it moving forward. They still haven't run that orbit motion with Kim Walker since then against the Detroit Lions when, unfortunately, Zach Charbonnet got a hefty fine for his block down the field. But I did like the creativity from Ryan Grubb. If I'm not mistaken, Mike, didn't Scott Huff get a ball at the end of the game for just how the offensive line performed?
Yeah, offensive line coach Scott Huff, who came with Grubb from Washington. Yeah, he got a game ball. His first time this season getting a game ball after a game.
So, yeah, offensive line was money. And some of those plays that I talked about is because the offensive line was doing such a good job. So one big thing goes out to the offensive line, Ryan Grubb, all of those guys, just because what I saw during the game, I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to be fun. They did a really good job. So, yeah, that's my one big thing from watching the tape on the Seahawks beating up on the Cardinals 30-18.
Yeah, shout out to Grubb, man. That's definitely how it should have looked that first game. It really should have. That Cardinals
Right?
defense, they just do a lot of stuff up front, but it's not like super. It's basically, hey, Buddha, can you go make a tackle? And Buddha's generally like, yes, I can. And if he doesn't make a tackle, it's probably a big play. And if he does make the tackle, it's probably a negative play for the offense. That was pretty much the entire game. I can't believe Buddha had 18 tackles, and he's all over. The Seahawks film is a showcase of two people, pretty much, Ryan Grubb and Buddha Baker. Like that's it really is. Like, oh my, and we're not a Buddha Baker podcast, but like he's just so hard to miss on that offensive film. So yeah, shout out to Grubb. I can't you Chris, they can't convince me. No one's like told me this anyway. But if someone was to tell me, I don't know, man. Nobody worried about y'all little podcast. I'd be like BS. They're doing too much stuff. And we recommend it out here. It's just it's come on, man. It's too obvious, you know. So shout out to us as well, it's saving the Seahawks offense, with our commentary. I got to give us some credit. Yeah, man. They're doing it. They are doing it. It does look like they're majoring in some runs. They figured out. We just practiced this one run really well. Chris, how many times you think let's say they have 80 plays in practice this week per day? How many snaps do you think was that counter run in their practice?
40, half or more? Like, come on.
At least. Yeah, at least, yes.
It looked so well practiced. It was beautiful. It was literally poetry. See these fat men rolling up the field, and it's like, oh Lord, there's DBs and maybe a linebacker executed. So yeah, they ran it a lot.
Yeah, and you could tell, though. You could tell they ran that. This was probably the first week they ran that as many times as they practiced that little tunnel screen. Right? And, Buddha blew up that as well, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't want to bring that up. That wasn't part of the positive, but yes.
No, yeah, I just had to show Buddha. So I mean, Buddha from here, so I don't feel that bad. Like shout him out, even though he went to that stupid school up, over in Montlake. But like he's a baller. Anyway, I'll go to the defensive side because Chris appropriately shout out Ryan Grubb and them there. And that my one big thing this week is specifically the defense at the second level. So just the second level, pretty much three dudes: T. Knight, Ernest Jones the fourth, and Devon Witherspoon. Like those three dudes, I feel like we're just the entire defense played super well for the most part. This like probably the edge was like okay, and this like maybe wasn't like Julian Love's best game tackling wise. But like for the most part, that second level was just cash. Like T. Knight, Ernest, and Spoon playing nickel, played a lot of nickel in this game, which makes sense. They combined for 27 total tackles, one run stuff. So that's a run for no gain. I believe that was by Spoon. 3 total passes defense, including Ernest's interception. And they had a tackle for loss among the 3 of them. That was, I know, by Spoon on somehow 3rd and 15 from 20 yards away. Like, come on. I had to tweet that play out last night. I was like, this is absurd. Absolutely absurd. So those guys are my one big thing for a few reasons. One, they're just really impactful. Like beyond those numbers, you could just see they were everywhere. And they were making really good plays that was just hard for the Cardinals to do just basic stuff. Like Ernest's interception, for instance, right? Like at first in real time, I was like, damn, Kyler's bugging, like because it looks like he just throws it right to Ernest, which he does. But also, I went and watched the play back and I was like, oh, I see exactly what Kyler was looking at. When Kyler rips his arm back to throw, Ernest is facing the other way, like full on facing the other way, like shoulders squared the other way, hips turned the other way, helmet turned the other way. And then he just, and I don't even know if Ernest like baited him into that. It really just feels like he was just doing his job and ball hits him in the face mask. Do what you're supposed to do, catch it. But it's such a smooth play because, like I said, he is just doing his job. Like that is your job. Drop, read, turn, boom. And if you do it right, ball hits you. That's like a simple concept that like he makes such a great play on. That is hard to make a play on. It's so hard, in fact. Marvin Harrison, the intended receiver on that, he hits him for like 20 yards on it later in the game because Ernest doesn't do that. I think it's on the last drive. He hits that like little backside dig or whatever because it is something they want to do. Ernest just stopped them from doing it. There were a couple plays in this game where T. Knight, so T. Knight had 2 passes defense. One of them is on the second play of the game. He bats the ball in the air. I think they're trying to set up a screen or something like that. The other one, though, he's one-on-one. The Cardinals go empty. He's one-on-one with Marvin Harrison in the slot. I was like, yo. And then Marvin Harrison tries to cross his face. T. Knight jumps it, swats it down. Like, that's your rookie inside linebacker against their 4th-round wide receiver one-on-one in the slot and empty. Like that's a tough play to make, and he makes it. He had another play where he locked up Michael Wilson too on an incompletion. Michael Wilson, one of the receivers, the guy who caught the touchdown on the first snap of the game. Like in coverage, they were making a lot of really good plays, not just the interception, which was uh, a great play, but just in general, they were doing some really hard stuff with the Cardinals passing game. Because we haven't talked much about the Cardinals offense, but like it is really explosive. Like they get down. Like look at the first drive of the game. Like that's what they do. They find those matchups and let Kyler just heave that joint. And there's a reason why they weren't able to do a lot of that stuff. One, they just couldn't throw it on the outside because Reek quietly had a really good game. They got him on the mesh concept on fourth down, but it's everyone runs mesh, I guess, when it's go time. It really is weird. Like the more I'm watching other teams, I'm like, oh, that's not just Ryan Grubb's go-to. That's like everyone's go-to play. It's just mesh. Just have a bunch of guys just cross each other on fourth or third down and then just throw it. That's also what Farrell Brown's target was in the end zone. I think on the opening drive too. But that was really the only time I felt like they got Reek. The other catch he gave up, I think he fell down. Marvin Harrison also pushed off on Reek a bazillion times. Anyway, I'm bringing all that up to say they couldn't throw it on the outside. So where do you want to throw it? In the middle. And then Ernest, Spoon, and T. Knight just made that just really, really, really hard. And also you can see Ernest is his command of the defense. Like if you guys watch the games, you see Ernest is usually like tapping guys on the D line, telling them to move places, moving guys around. And very rarely is like you can see almost a direct result of like that work coming to fruition in the play. But there was an instance, like one of Leonard Williams' 2 tackles for loss. Leonard, who quietly had another monster game. One of Leonard's 2 tackles for loss in this game. You can see Ernest tap him like, yo, get in this gap right here. That's where the ball's going. Leonard shoots it, bang, TFL. Ernest had another play where they motioned James Conner. This is earlier in the game. They motioned James Conner to I think away from T Knight, either away from T Knight or to T Knight's side. And you can tell T Knight wants to bump with the motion, like move over with it. And which is usually probably what they would do. But Ernest tells him, no. Stay right here. It's coming back to us. Actually, yeah, he motioned away from T Knight. He's like, no, don't worry about it. Don't follow it. This run is actually coming right to us. And he's 100% right. It comes right into T Knight's gap. And he stops him for like, I don't know, just a short gain. It wasn't a TFL, but just like an easy run stop. Like them when you're middle of your defense like that with Spoon, T Knight, Ernest, when they're making life hard on the offense in the run game and the pass game, your whole defense is cash. Unless your corners on the outside are just bums, because then you can just, cover 3, throw it over their heads. But clearly that hasn't been the case in Mike McDonald's defense all year. It's not going to start today. So it's really those guys making it so hard on those dudes, man. T Knight out here covering whip routes. Chris, you know how hard it is to cover whip route when you're a receiver, or excuse me, when you're a DB.
Saw that live, and I was like, damn, that's impressive, because it wasn't like it was a running back or a fullback. That was your 4th overall selection, and he's just right there knocking it away.
Yeah, man, he is. No, that was probably the best game collectively that their second level has played. And again, I'm looping Spoon into that because Spoon, he didn't have a lot of splash plays. This was really another classic Spoon game. Like he had the TFL, but it doesn't stand out a bunch because it was like on 3rd and 1,000,000, but because they were going to punt anyway. But what he does to cover ground on that play, he's like at the time that this forget which dude catches it. I think he got a long name, DeMarcado, I think, the running back from Arizona State. I think like he's about 18 yards away from Spoon in the flat, and Spoon just beelines to this cat and gets him for a tackle for loss on the check down. Like that dude is probably getting cooked in film this week. That's bad. That reminds me of that play Chris JSN had to play like that against the Giants, I think, last year as a rookie, where he catches a ball on the flat and then gets tripped up for like a 1-yard gain. It was like
bubble screen. I remember that.
Yeah, on a little screen. It was like, come on, bro. Like you drafted too high. You gotta make that dude miss. And that's probably how cooked that I think there was the DeMarcado cat. If it's not, it was the Benson guy. It doesn't matter either way. Point still remains. And then Spoon was just tackling the hell out of these guys in this game, man, and covering really well too. He didn't get a lot of targets, if any. I don't think in this game. Spoon also sets up the last play of the game, which ends up being the Rayshon Jenkins sack. Mike McDonald just says F it, sends the house, which he didn't do all game. So literally the last play is like, you know what? All out blitz, go. Sends it. Rayshon comes free. Spoon comes free first, misses. Rayshon cleans it up. But another play set up by Spoon. who was just hitting really hard in this game. Had a really good solo tackle on James Conner, which is tough because James is big as hell. Really good solo tackle on him in the red zone. Tyrice Knight had a play where I think, what's number 4's name on the Cardinals? Is that Greg Dortch? I think is how you say it. Let me see his. Let me pull up this right here. Yeah, Greg Dortch. I don't know how much he weighs. I got the roster in front of me. Let me check this. He
180.
weighs 175.57. So that's me pretty much. I'm about 5'8" some change and about that weight. Boy, Kyler checked down to him on 2nd and long, and T Knight just pushed him down like an adult pushing a kid on the playground. He just ran into him and just shoved him to the ground. And I bring that play up because you could kind of really feel the physicality from all 3 of those dudes at that level, which is also important because to kind of bring this back to what Chris was talking about, his one big thing. The Seahawks offensive run plan was, let's get Zach Charbonnet to the 2nd level because these boys who aren't Buddha don't want to tackle. That was generally their idea, and it worked for the most part because, again, when Buddha wasn't making the tackle, the Seahawks were moving the ball. The Cardinals could not have that same plan. You couldn't be like, let's get James Conner near number 21 because he's a $180. That doesn't matter because he likes to tackle. He likes violence. It can't be, oh, let's get James Conner to number 48, to get to the 2nd level. The 2nd level was problems for the Cardinals defense. Those guys have been playing well all year, but it really showed up in this game because, when the Cardinals needed to move the ball, they couldn't do it outside the numbers, really, despite having good talent out there. And when they tried to do stuff between the hashes, they were cooked. I don't know how many yards the Cardinals had, but they didn't have a good offensive game. They didn't. Like, Kyler didn't play well. They ran the ball okay, but not nearly to what they needed to do to win the game. Like, it was a really good performance by everyone. Again, I'm highlighting just one aspect of it, but those 2nd level dudes, that spine of your team, guys who are in all your play action schemes, they're in all your run fits, like they're dropping deep on their obvious passing downs, they're blitzing. I think all of those guys blitzed in this game. Spoon, T Knight, and EJ, like they were cash, man. It was a really good performance from them. They made life so hard on Kyler. They were really physical. You need those guys to be really tough. Those guys at your 2nd level, because your D linemen are probably always going to be tough. They're all 280 pounds plus, like they're not going to be soft. You know what I mean? Like they're not, or they wouldn't be on the field. But there are some teams, and the Seahawks have played some of them, where the guys at their 2nd level ain't like that. They not tough. They don't want to take on tight ends. They don't want to take on pulling guards. They're not ready for just a little violence. Everyone on the Seattle 2nd level is, and that really, particularly Spoon, like he just likes to hit people, which is crazy because he might be 180. Like he might. What is Spoon listed at? Let me check that. If you had to guess, Chris, what do you think Spoon's listed at?
6 feet 190.
He is listed at 6 feet 185, which that actually he might be 185. That might be accurate. He plays like 220. Like he has the physicality, like the attitude of like a Cam Chance, like that level of violence, and it really makes their whole scheme come to life when your nickel defends the run like he can and can cover like he can. So my one big thing is that 2nd level of their defense was cash. They were responsible for one of the 2 turnovers, a lot of runs, a lot of good tackles against the run, really good coverage stuff. Again, 3 total plays on the ball by that group, including Ernest's interception. So when those guys are playing well, I mean the whole unit is playing well. Me and Chris are watching the film every week. Everyone is playing well on that defense. There's no one playing bad. Because as we talked about on our post-game show, if they were, Mike McDonald would probably send them to the Raiders. He's not tolerating people who aren't playing well. But those 3, I think, played like superhumans. Those 3 and Leonard Williams played like superhumans against the Cardinals. So they are my one big thing, I guess, with an honorable mention to Big Cat, because that dude is a baller.
Baller indeed. But look, coming up, we will preview the Packers traveling all the way from cold Green Bay to take on the Seahawks at the Lou. That'll be Sunday Night Football. So Matt Schneidman of The Athletic, he will wrap with us about that matchup, what we can expect from the receivers. They got a nice little tight end over there too, I hear. And then Josh Jacobs, Seahawks fans, you remember Josh Jacobs, I'm sure. 2 years ago against the Raiders, we'll just leave it at that. So coming up next, we'll have Matt Schneidman of The Athletic talking Seahawks-Packers preview of Sunday Night Football.
All right, it is time for that portion of the show where we bring in a guest to preview the Seahawks' upcoming game. So, to discuss Seahawks-Packers with us, a big game for both teams, we have the homie Matt Schneidman. He covers the Packers for The Athletic, does a great job. Matt, welcome back to the Seahawks Man to Man podcast. How are you?
We got a big one, fellas. I think the last time I was on was before the last time these two teams played. It wasn't the divisional round in 2019, was it?
No, it was 2021 after Russ's first game back after breaking his finger.
That's right. Okay. I remember that. Okay. Now a three-time guest on the pod, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think
maybe. At least two.
At least two, yes. At least two. When we've gone to our YouTube component. I also sold you short on the intro. I wanted to do it when you got on here. Not only does Matt do a great job covering the Packers for The Athletic, he's also the host of the Matt Schneidman Show daily on the radio over there. He also hosts the Matt LaFleur podcast, a monthly sit down with the Packers head coach, a Syracuse grad as well, which is notable because our Cougs, you're talking to two Washington State Coug grads. We're playing you guys. Gonna knock the snot out of the Orangemen in the Holiday Bowl here in a couple weeks. Matt's also an expert poker player.
I don't know. See, that's the only non-factual thing you said so far. Everything you just said helps me pay for this house that I'm in right now. That last part takes away money from me paying for this house.
That perfect segue into the other bullet point here on my note sheet. Matt's a recent homeowner. So congrats to you, sir. Also a Yankee fan. So
yeah, die hard. That's I won't go on too long about this, but everyone always asks me, "Are you a Packers fan? Are you a Packers fan?" No, I'm a reporter, a neutral reporter. The only team I still have serious rooting interest in is the New York Yankees. I'm a diehard fan. Their logo's tattooed on my body. I paid almost $2,000 going to a World Series game this year. Wow. But man, losing Juan Soto, that's tough. We won't get into that though. Let's talk football. Let's talk football.
Last thing on that, I would say I'm not, pocket watching or anything, but if there is something to subtract from the paying for the house, I would imagine it is $2,000 for World Series tickets.
Almost a mortgage. So that's why I'm placing English Premier League and college football parlays every weekend.
Oh yes, we love a fellow degenerate on the show. All right, let's talk about the Seahawks Packers game, which is a big game for both teams. Seahawks are trying to hold on to the division lead. The Packers still, winning the divisions will be tough at this point, but they want to stack some wins, increase their wild card position. Last time a lot of Seahawks, well, I won't say it this way. Put it this way, Matt. Do you think the Packers are a team that could win the Super Bowl? If so, why? If not, why not?
Could they? Yeah, I think they could, but I wouldn't put them in the category of legitimate Super Bowl contenders yet. They have the talent on both sides of the ball. They're 9-4, so they're going to make the playoffs realistically, unless they lose out and other things happen around them. They have a defense that has, I believe, 23 takeaways this year. They have, an inconsistent pass rush. That's probably their biggest weakness, but they have a quarterback who can be one of the best in the league when he's healthy, which he is now after first half of the season being injured pretty much the whole time. They have one of the best running backs in the league. They have a deep core of pass catchers who may not be well known to everyone around the league, but they can be productive. And they have a special teams that won't be an Achilles heel like it has been in years past. So can they win the Super Bowl? Sure. Last season, at this time, the Packers were, 5-7 at this time, and they needed to win out to make the playoffs. And then they destroyed the Cowboys in the first round. They were beating the 49ers in the divisional round in the fourth quarter, and they would have gone to Detroit for the NFC Championship game where they won on Thanksgiving. So if that team wasn't far away from maybe an NFC Championship game, I don't think this one is either. The only thing is they're 9-4. They're 0-4 against teams with better records than them in the NFC. But they lost to the Lions by 3 last Thursday. They lost to the Vikings by 2 in a game they missed 2 field goals from a kicker who's no longer on the team. And they lost to the Eagles by 5 in week 1 in Brazil in a game that was kind of a toss-up because of the field surface and week 1 unscouted looks. You guys know the deal. So they're close. They're not far off from being one of those elite contenders, but I think they're right a step below that, probably in the same category that the Seahawks are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of that same stuff, applies to the Seahawks. Obviously they didn't make the playoffs last year, but yeah, this is a team. Whichever team wins is going to feel like a contender coming out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would guess, no matter how it goes. And yeah, the Packers looks like fourth in turnovers per drive. Really getting after teams. We'll talk about Xavier McKinney a little later in the show, the league leader in interceptions. So yeah, both teams are looking at this like, let's prove we're a contender here on Sunday Night Football, national spotlight. Big hashtag big game for both teams. Let's talk about that quarterback who I enjoy watching because I don't root for the Packers. He's one of those players. He's like good Jameis a little bit sometimes in that way, where it's like if you're not a Packers fan, watching Jordan Love is great because on any given play, it might be off his back foot 40-yard heave to Romeo Doubs, or it might be, damn, Jordan, do you know you're on the team wearing yellow, right? Like you're aware of this, so like what? I'm that's a little bit of an oversimplification. As you know, Jordan's having a really good year, 13th in drop back EPA, 6th in touchdown rate, even though he's thrown a lot of picks. I think he's third highest interception rate behind only Cousins and Anthony Richardson. But generally having a good year after getting the bag. What have you seen from Jordan Love?
Yeah, he's a quarterback that the Packers can win because of, not win with. He's a quarterback that you win because of. He sprained his MCL on the third to last play of the season opener in Brazil, not because of the field surface, because Jalen Carter just tackled him awkwardly, missed 2 games, came back, wasn't, great after that. He wore a Brett Favre jersey walking into that game against the Vikings in week 4 at Lambeau Field and proceeded to go for like 350, 4 touchdowns and 3 picks. So literally Brett Favre, minus the never mind. I won't get into that. And then week 8 against the Jaguars, right when Jordan's starting to get into a groove health-wise, sprains his groin. Doesn't miss any time, but it took him a couple weeks to really get fully healthy, really, practice in full each day during the week. And now, the last couple games, we've seen what that can do. Not only his movement inside the pocket, but his movement outside the pocket. He had one play on Thursday night against the Lions where Jack Campbell, Lions middle linebacker, comes scot-free on a blitz. Josh Jacobs misses the blitz pickup. Jordan kind of ducks under him, maneuvers in the pocket. It was 2nd and 14 from deep in Packers territory and lobs a perfect pass to Christian Watson. I think Matt LaFleur called that play unbelievable for 29 yards. And, his ability to create with his legs, both past and behind the line of scrimmage, and his arm talent and accuracy. Yeah, there are going to be some times when he throws it to the other team, although after throwing an interception in each of his first 8 games this season, he has not thrown one in his last 3. He is going to take chances. And throughout that interception stretch, the big story here in Green Bay was, does he need to be more conservative? Does he need to make better decisions? And the answer from everybody in the team was no, because the otherworldly plays that he makes that not many quarterbacks can make, they don't happen if he's not maintaining that same level of aggressiveness. And I think now we're seeing, better decisions. They've had drops problems this year, guys catching the ball, accuracy. Jordan Love, is he playing like an elite quarterback this year? Probably not, but just like the Packers as a whole, I would say he's right below that level with the possibility to get up to that elite level.
And you're over there in Green Bay, so it's probably only so many shots you can take at Brett Favre. We will take them. Just I'll let you know, Matt.
I don't care. Show, I just tell it how it is.
On our last show, our post-game show, we kind of alluded to this matchup and having you on, and I referred to Jordan Love as Brett Favre minus the stealing from poor people. So it's okay. We've already established that is who Jordan is. I love it. Like you said, he's just that Vikings game. Come in, it's like, all right, man, I might throw 3 picks today, might throw 4 touchdowns. Just come along for the ride. It's a good time. I'm hoping selfishly it's a game like that on Sunday. I love watching him. There are 2 teams, the Bills and the Packers, and pivoting to the wide receiver position, where I thought what they were kind of doing with their units was kind of fascinating. It was the idea of like, we don't really need like a 1, like all our guys are kind of good and we can just be productive that way. The Bills gave up on that very quickly and said, we need Amari Cooper.
Right.
The Packers did not. They were like, we're good. Dobbs, Watson, Jaden Reed, who had a donut last week. My fantasy team hurt, but that's okay. No one cares about Mike's fantasy team. That's fine. But they stuck with it. Do you think, and you talked to Matt LaFleur about this, I know, Like, do you think that's like was the right way to go? You know, like we don't need a true wide receiver one. And what have you seen from their passing attack in that regard? And maybe I guess to piggyback on that as well, do you think that's something that could work in the playoffs, not having that kind of true one-ish type of guy?
I do, because, and this is not to say, I'm going to use Davante Adams as an example because he was the last true number one wide receiver this team had. This is not to say the Packers would be a worse team with Davante Adams. Nobody's saying that. They would be a better team because, you know, when they had him, and still to some extent, he is a guy that you go to on gotta have it downs. He gets 12 targets a game, can dominate a game. But I think there's just an alternative way that you can go about it. You know, before the season, everyone was talking around here inside the building about we have 4 guys that we think can be that number one guy. It was Wicks, Reed, Watson, and Dobbs. And I would say Dobbs, Watson, and Reed have at times this season been that guy. I'll use last Thursday's game as an example for why I think it can be sustainable, because Jaden Reed, probably their closest thing to a number one wide receiver, as you know from your fantasy team. He's probably their most versatile offensive weapon. He's put up a couple games with, 6 catches, 113 and a touchdown or something like that this season. He's taken the jet sweeps. But last week, he plays 50% of the snaps. He has 1 target, he drops it, and he has 0 catches. But they still score 31 points. If Davante Adams ever had a game with 1 target and 0 catches in Green Bay, the offense probably didn't do that well. But Christian Watson had 4 for 114. Tucker Kraft had like 4 for 65 and a touchdown or something. Wicks had a couple catches. Dobbs didn't play. What enables this offense to still, get the wheels turning when one of those guys disappears for a game is that they have guys who can step up and be that number one. When Davante was here, like, could Alan Lazard or Valdez Scantling be that guy? Maybe, but they have a lot more depth at this receiver position. And I think, Tucker Kraft, their tight end, who I know we're going to talk about, him kind of growing into a premier pass catching tight end in this league has really helped that too. So they have 5 guys, you could argue, who can be that number one target on any given day. And that's why I think it is sustainable, because just throw to the open guy. I mean, for better or for worse, Aaron would force it to Davante. And sometimes you want to do that, but they don't have to do that in this offense.
Yeah, speaking of Kraft, he's
Psycho.
Okay, well, that explains why he's leading the team in yards after catch, because he's a psycho. But how are they? Is it just, hey, get open? Or are they scheming to get him open? What goes into the offense and why he's leading in yards after catch on a team that has a bunch of receivers that are very talented?
Mm-hmm. Well, he's a supremely physical guy. And he said earlier this year he never is going to let a DB bring him down, at least on first contact. He's quick. He has really good hands. And yeah, like you said, I think he is leading all tight ends in yards after catch per reception. He might be second in touchdown catches. He's like top 6 in catches among touchdowns or among tight ends. And last year, it's funny. So they drafted Tucker Kraft in the 3rd round last year, and they drafted Luke Musgrave, a tight end from Oregon State, Kraft being from South Dakota State. They drafted Musgrave in the 2nd round. And coming in last year, we thought, okay, Musgrave is going to be the stretch the field guy. Kraft's going to be more of an inline blocker. And Kraft said last year his goal was to be the best blocking tight end in the NFL, because he was filling kind of a role that Mercedes Lewis had here in Green Bay for 5 years. Well, now Musgrave has barely done anything. He's currently injured after having ankle surgery. And Kraft has become this all-around tight end, kind of a not spiritual leader, but kind of an energy source for this team. Really, really good after the catch, really good in tight areas, and a pretty solid blocker too. And I think you're going to see his name along with the Brock Bowers, Sam Laportas, those guys in this next wave of tight ends after Kittle and Kelsey kind of get older.
How have teams tried to slow him down? Not saying that he's a dominating tight end, but you mentioned some of his numbers. Because I look at the Seahawks defense, they did a much better job against, oh my gosh, Trey McBride on Sunday against the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first matchup, he lit him up. He was just taking crosses across the field. They couldn't really tackle him. He was just finding space. And then I look at Kraft, I'm like, damn, that might be a problem there. So I have teams try to slow him down if the others aren't eating up the field and everything.
Yeah, I think you got to check him at the line of scrimmage. And, he's super physical, but if you can get a chip on him or hands on him at the line of scrimmage, not let him get into his route, not let him get downfield where there is more space for that yards after catch, I think that's probably the best way. He can still, make stuff happen in the intermediate, but I think when you get him past that first down marker, 10, 15 yards downfield is when he can really do damage, not only, on the catch, but after it.
Yeah. One thing that's standing out is Josh Jacobs. The last time the Seahawks played Josh Jacobs was in 2022, and he ended that game on a nice little stretch and just hit the hole. It's crazy. If I'm not mistaken, there's only one player that is on the Seahawks roster from that game that was starting, if I'm not mistaken. That's Uchenna Nwosu. Everybody else is gone. But Uchenna, he's probably like, yo, Josh is a problem. I remember that game. So I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, he also leads the league in, missed tackles forced at 84. He had 7 against the Lions. What kind of scheme they got going over there that allows him just to be so effective in the run game?
Back on March 11th this year, the report came out that they were signing Josh Jacobs, and they hadn't released Aaron Jones yet. That happened about an hour later. And there was some trepidation, I'll say, around here, because it's like Aaron Jones is a franchise legend. Sure, he's entering his age 30 season, but he's still effective. But he's coming off a season in which he missed 11 games with multiple injuries. Josh Jacobs is more than 3 years younger. What is it going to kind of be like? And, Josh Jacobs is more of a downhill runner than Aaron Jones, who's more of a slasher. Aaron Jones is probably a little more effective in the passing game, but Josh Jacobs just wears you down, man. He's played 13 games for the Packers. He's played in every one, which is huge considering what I just said about Jones. And he's had 25-plus carries in 3 of those games. Aaron Jones had 1 game in 102 games with the Packers, postseason and regular season, where he had 25-plus carries. Jacobs has brought a physical aspect to the Packers. They haven't been known as a physical team under Matt LaFleur. In fact, sometimes they've been, known as soft, losses against the Lions, the Jets when they were good. Jacobs brings a physicality, but also, like, you'll see him on Sunday, and you've seen him before. He's close to the ground. He's kind of stocky, but then the way he cuts on some of these counters or, gap schemes when he has to read the gap and making guys miss, his spin moves, his jukes, like, it's incredible how quickly this guy moves. I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, because Next Gen Stats tweeted during last Thursday's game his missed tackle numbers, and I couldn't find the updated numbers after Thursday's game, but he has that. He's 3rd in the league in rushing yards, tied for 4th among running backs in rushing touchdowns, top 10 in yards after contact per rush. He is, I would argue, their best offensive player. And the Packers, for the first time, or at least more so than any other year under Matt LaFleur, are really a run-first team, and it's because of him and how good he is.
I want to throw some numbers out here. We were talking earlier about Kraft. Let's start with him. A bonkers one that I just looked up here. Among tight ends, yards after catch per reception, 9.2. Dog, that's like the Deebo Samuel of tight ends.
Yeah.
That is a bonkers number. Number 2, to put that in perspective, is Isaiah Likely at 6.9. So pretty much, like Tucker's Deebo and everyone else is just like a guy. The league average is 5 yards after catch per reception.
This is George Kittle in his prime.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if Kittle's putting them. That's
Probably
a crazy,
not, but
that's
Kittle,
crazy number.
That was Kittle's mentality is psycho. Basically, I'm not letting the DB bring me down. Matter of fact, a linebacker too. Matter of fact, all y'all not tackling me. That's his mentality. So,
and it's funny because Kraft has kind of developed a relationship with George and talked to him, had a nice moment with him after the 49ers came here a couple weeks ago. George Kittle's a future Hall of Famer, so I'm not going to say Tucker Kraft is George Kittle yet, but there are kind of inklings of that's the kind of player he could be. And it's not just yards after catch. I mean, he has 7 touchdowns, which is, I think, 2nd behind Kittle in the NFL. So he's been super productive.
Yeah, it does have 7 touchdowns as well. Yeah, he's balling right now. And yeah, Kittle has 8. Oh man, special dude. Somehow Jonnu Smith has 5. Wow, good for him. The other number I wanted to mention is that the last time Josh Jacobs played the Seahawks, he had in that Raiders game, because the numbers were just staggering. So I feel like we all need to hear them again. Josh Jacobs had 33 carries for 229 yards and 2 touchdowns, including the game winner in overtime that Chris alluded to, an 86-yard touchdown run up the gut in overtime. Just a crazy, untouched, I want to say.
it was untouched. We went over and after the game, it was like, who touches him? Nobody.
86 yards to the house, untouched in overtime. Are you kidding me? He also had 74 yards receiving in that game. That might be the best individual running back performance I've ever seen in my life. That's over 300 scrimmage yards, 2 touchdowns, and an 86-yard game winner in overtime. So yeah, like the Seahawks will know if they're only watching Packers film this week, they are doing themselves a disservice. Go back and watch that game. Even though, as Chris said, not many guys are still on the team from that. I think Reek Woolen, that's his rookie year, as well as Chenna was on the team as well, Boye Mafe. So they have some guys, but it ain't many. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason they overhauled the team on defense after that, because, boy, that was embarrassing. So just want to throw that out there as we put a cap on the offensive side of the ball for the Packers.
Defensively, though, in the secondary, what's up with Jair Alexander? He is a talented player. I know the hamstring issue it takes time to heal, but are there any updates? Because I know the impact he can have, especially with the Seahawks offense. I guess maybe finding a groove. Is there any update on him and his impact if he does play?
Yeah, I mean, Jair's an interesting one because in 2022, he got the contract for highest paid cornerback in NFL history. I think he's second right now behind Pat Surtain. So he still makes $21 million a year. The last 2 seasons in which he's played at least 15 games, he's made second team All Pro. But since the 2020 season, I believe Jair has played in like 21 of a total of 67 games or something like that. Some number like that. A myriad of injuries. Right now it's a knee. Earlier this season, it was a groin. Last year it was a shoulder and something else. He tore his PCL in week 8 against the Jaguars on the last play of the game that the defense was on the field. And then he missed the following game against the Lions. They had their bye in week 10, so he stayed in Green Bay to try and rehab that. Played against the Bears in week 11, only 10 defensive snaps before re-aggravating it, and then hasn't played in any of the last 3 games. They didn't put him on IR, keeping open this window to bring him back for this game. He practiced in a limited capacity all last week. This week, we'll see once we get out there tomorrow as we record this on Tuesday. But the thing with Jair, you just never know, because last year they didn't put him on IR with the shoulder injury, and he missed 6 games. So it's not like a guarantee that he comes back before that 4-game window closes. But there's no denying he's a game changer when he's on the field. He's only 27 years old. He can still be that shutdown corner. And it's super important that he gets healthy because their depth there isn't great. Like Javon Bullard, who's their starting nickel, their rookie second-round pick out of Georgia, is not going to play on Sunday because he injured his ankle against the Lions. He's week to week. So that means that Keyshawn Nixon's going to slide from outside corner to the nickel. And then right now, without Jair, you have Eric Stokes and Carrington Valentine as your outside corners. That ain't going to win you any big games. With all due respect to those guys, it's just not. If a team throws the ball like the Seahawks can. And then Evan Williams, who's their rookie safety from Oregon, who was a 4th-round pick, but he's been tremendous this season. He's currently in the concussion protocol after suffering one against the Lions. So their defensive backfield, that's the biggest question going into this game. Who is going to be on the field? Because if they trot out there, Valentine, Stokes at outside corner, Nixon at nickel, and then Zane Anderson, who's, their primary core special teamer, he's had to play safety, but he's like their 4th or 5th safety. He played a bunch against the Lions. That lineup against the Seahawks, I don't know if that's going to cut it.
No, it's honestly, Matt, for a second there, it sounded like you were just making up those names, to be honest. I was
Brother,
like, okay,
Zane Anderson is 6th in fan voting for Pro Bowl specialist. Have some respect.
Like I knew Nixon because Nixon's the returner, right? He's really good as a returner. Okay, so that's why I know him. I knew Stokes. Stokes is also Georgia, correct?
Yeah, he was a 2021 first-round pick. Not good. They didn't exercise his 5th-year option. He's been super injured the last couple of years, but not a good player when he's on the field. So, and Valentine, their other guy, is a 2nd-year guy who was a 7th-round pick out of Kentucky last year. So, slim pickings in the secondary for them.
Yeah, once you got to Valentine, I was like, yeah, he's making these guys up.
And then Xavier McKinney, heard of that guy?
Yeah.
No, he's a baller. We can transition to him because I don't got nothing on corners I ain't never heard of. Though I have heard of Bullard. He was a safety at Georgia.
He was a safety at Georgia. He played a good amount of safety in Green Bay too. And then they thought, to get our best 5 on the field, we should probably move him to nickel.
Matt, I know you play a little Madden, right?
I used to, not anymore, but I used to dabble.
I am the Packers for my for my franchise, and I won the Super Bowl last year. And I had Javon as safety. And I think he led the league with interceptions. I was watching on the video game. He nice with it,
So
Tip him a toe tap.
that is our point of reference for Packers DBs. It is Madden and watching Georgia. That is, you can see how well prepared
that's
we
pretty
are.
good. They just draft guys out of Georgia anyway. So,
which, to be honest, is not like a poor strategy. Like if you're just like, you know what, if we're gonna just default to guys who play for Georgia, I mean, we should be okay. The other guy
four their defensive starters are from Georgia.
Wow.
So 4 of them.
Not bad. The other guy we do know is Xavier McKinney, former Giant. He and Josh Jacobs. If you wanted to like look at like I don't know the rest of the league, but like executive of the year candidates, you look at the teams like the Packers who didn't go crazy in free agency but spent their money very wisely. You get a potential All-Pro running back, maybe depending on Henry and Saquon, but like that type of caliber player in Josh Jacobs, and then you get the guy who's leading the league in interceptions. At safety, just crazy. And there's kind of two ways for safeties to pile up numbers. It is the equivalent of like guys who get like cleanup sacks. Like there's a way to do that. A lot of tipped balls, terrible passes, playing Will Levis, is like a way to run up your interception numbers. And there's guys who are like legit ball hawks. We've seen that for a while. Like Quandre Diggs was that, like in the right spot. Which way is Xavier? Is he getting fortunate with some of this stuff, or is he really hawking stuff down to lead the league with 7 interceptions?
He did pick off Will Levis this year. Jair also
Everybody does.
Jair also picked 6 Will Levis in the same game. So, yeah, I think, and this is not to discredit Xavier McKinney, but there have been a lot of interceptions that have been cleanup duty or playing center field. And sure, he has, jumped some routes and made some great plays, but I think being in the right place at the right time isn't just luck and good fortune and whatnot. It's not like, a pass rusher, maybe getting a defensive tackle, pressuring the QB into stepping right into a sack for an outside linebacker. Like Xavier McKinney is playing the tips and overthrows. He's reading guys as the center field safety and breaking on a half field play. He's a really interesting guy. I've got a feature coming on him in the coming weeks. And it's interesting. On the bus from away stadiums to the airport to go back to Green Bay, McKinney will be on a different bus than Ryan Downard, who's the Packers defensive backs coach, and McKinney will be texting him for tape on the opposing quarterback. For example, played the Jaguars in week 8. They're on the bus from the stadium back to the airport in Jacksonville. Ryan Downard gets a text asking for Jared Goff tape because they're playing the Lions in week 9. Like, he's just a savant with stuff like that. Super helpful to the young safeties. He's still only 25 years old. He came into the league at 20, I think, out of Alabama. Him and Josh Jacobs also teammates at Alabama for a couple of years. But his ball skills are incredible. His ability to read a quarterback before the snap is really, really good. Just look at the interception he had in week 1 against Jalen Hurts on the opening series of the season. The amount of ground he covers after he reads Hurts' eyes and where he's going to go with that ball is incredible. So you watch the games on the surface and say, oh, he's just, playing cleanup duty or getting tips like he did when Deebo Samuel dropped a pass a couple weeks ago. But it requires so much more than that, during the week, before the play, to put yourself in those positions. And that's why I think I checked the odds today. He's either 2nd or 3rd behind TJ Watt and Pat Surtain in Defensive Player of the Year odds. And I think rightfully so. He never really gets beat for big plays either. I maybe can only imagine once that's happened, and it might not have even been his fault. So he's been a tremendous addition.
Yeah, no, he's a baller. I mean, he's probably going to contribute to that Giants GM getting fired for letting him and Saquon go. Is like, man, you're letting good young players. I'm glad you mentioned his age too. It's a young safety who's hawking stuff down.
Yeah.
Like he's a ball player. Geno Smith, avoid that brother if you can, because Matt is correct. He has not given up many big plays. Chris, are you ready for Matt to win our fans, our listeners, some money maybe with his over under and his game prediction? See if he can help him with that.
Let's do it. We'll go with game prediction first. So right now the Packers are favored -3 going to the Seahawks. So Matt, pick your poison. Who gets the win here? And give us a point. Give us some points on that.
Yeah, I'm surprised that this is the line. I would anticipate, obviously, as we know, us degenerates on this show, 3 points for home field. So that's telling me that Vegas thinks the Packers are going to win by 6 or more. That's a little crazy to me. Matt LaFleur said earlier this week, he said playing in Seattle is always a chore, even though he's never done it with the Packers. He did when he was, the OC under Sean McVay with the Rams. I think that Seattle wins a shootout in this game. I just don't have tremendous confidence in the Packers' defensive backfield against one of the most dangerous passing attacks in the NFL. As the week goes on, if we learn that Jair is playing and we learn that Evan Williams is out of concussion protocol, then I reserve the right to change my prediction. But as of now, Tuesday, December 10th, 3:05 p.m. Central Time, I'm going Seahawks 30, Packers 27.
I'm gonna let you know right now, Matt, you do not have that luxury on this show. This is recorded. We are putting it out, and that is your
That's
prediction.
why I said that.
Let's see, you have the over too as well there. I think it's 45 and a half. And if I heard that right, there's a brother over there named after whiskey, Evan Williams.
Evan Williams bourbon, yeah. Or is it
yeah.
whiskey? I don't remember.
I think it's whatever. It doesn't. It's liquor.
So Evan Williams' dad was on the field for the infamous Band on the Field play, Cal Stanford, way back when, and he's been really good for them. I mean, he was a Senior Bowl guy, day 3 pick out of Oregon, and he was a camp standout. But you never really know if those guys are going to translate to the field. And he's earned himself a full-time starting role, so he's been tremendous.
It is bourbon whiskey. So we were both. Correct there. I also don't like how well my computer knows me. As soon as I typed in Evan, it auto filled in Williams, which I promise you guys I have never Googled before now. I don't know why.
It's the NFL. They hear us talking about him. It's the NFL, not the drink.
Oh man, yeah, no, I'm a little offended by my computer there. All right, so we have that prediction written down. A Seahawks win. That is interesting there. I'm with you though. This line is kind of funky. I can imagine after everyone listens to this, they throw money down and the line moves. Our over-under for this week will be, what did I decide on? Oh, Josh Jacobs rushing yards. I think he's averaging about 81 a game. The Seahawks coming into this game doing really well against the run. I think Connor hit him for 90 last week, but some of that in garbage time too to hit the over. So 80 and a half rushing yards for Josh Jacobs against the Seahawks on Sunday night. Matt, what are you going with, the over or the under?
I'll go with the under. I'm going to go under. He scored 3 touchdowns last week against the Lions. He's had 7 touchdowns in his last 3 games. Packers have gone from, so just a different stat. So in the last 4 games, the Packers have gone from 29th in red zone touchdown percentage to 12th, largely because of Josh Jacobs, because of how effective he is in the red zone. But he only had 66 rushing yards last week, if I'm not mistaken. So like you just said, Seahawks have a pretty stout run defense. I think they prevent him from breaking out on some of those explosive runs. And I think Jordan Love is able to get his through the air, but I'm going to go under that number.
All right. Write that down, Chris. Matt also does not have the right to reserve a change on that either. He's got to stay with it.
Both of those picks. Fade me.
If you want to win some money, bet against Matt. I don't know, man. Seahawk, you're taking a Seahawk win. I don't know if Chris, when's the last time someone picked a Seahawk win? Maybe Zach did over the Jets, but
I think it might have been before that. Maybe Josh.
Both Cardinals writers, picked the Cardinals. So we haven't had a lot of people had faith. Zach just thinks the Jets stink, and he's right. So that makes sense.
He ain't wrong.
Yeah, no, he's not wrong. The
New York Packers.
They just tried to be the Northern Packers, and that does not work. Or New York Packers, that does not work. So what is our beat writer record before we get Matt out of here?
6-5.
6-5. All right, so we're above 500. So let's see if Matt can keep that going, get a Seahawks win. Before we let you out of here, sir, I plugged everything you got going. Is there anything else? The floor is yours. Any stories you got coming? You want to plug your Twitter, Blue Sky, Pod, Radio, whatever. It's yours. Go ahead.
No, you hit it all. I appreciate you guys having me on. I am looking forward to getting out to Seattle for my first of 2 flights to Seattle in the next 4 weeks, most likely.
Oh, yeah, that's right. This could be a playoff preview as well.
Today, this would be the wild card round.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot all about that. Too busy Googling bourbon whiskey. All right. Well, that is the homie Matt Schneidman. Does a great job covering the Packers for The Athletic. Again, host of the Matt Schneidman Show. Talks to Matt LaFleur monthly on the Matt LaFleur podcast. Syracuse grad, go Cougs. Yankee fan, expert poker player, despite him playing down his skills there, and recent homeowner. Congrats again, sir. Thank you guys for listening to the Seahawks Man to Man podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Blue Wire, wherever. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, all the buttons you need to press to support us. We really appreciate it. We'll come back this week with our standout plays from our film review of Seahawks win over the Cardinals. And then after that, our next show will be our post-game show where we break down Seahawks-Packers, a game in which, according to Matt, again, he cannot change his prediction. According to Matt, the Packers are going to lose on Sunday night. That'll be our next thing. Chris, anything else before we get out of here?
We appreciate all the love and support. We'll catch you guys later this week.